Hello! Today we're going to be talking about breathing. Breathing is important mostly for, life and oxygen, getting oxygen into your body. But for those of us who are voice users, it's especially important because it is literally the foundation of all we do. And it's super important to learn how to breathe correctly and how to make the most use of your breath to take the strain off of your throat, and so that you have stamina and can use your voice for long periods of time and do like heightened stuff like shouting and crying and things like that. So we're going to go through the very basics today, starting from the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. And moving through the process of breath and how to make that work for us as voice users. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, you can't really see at the moment, but I'm stood with my feet hip distance apart, and my weight is about halfway between my heels and my toes. I'll look at alignment and all of that stuff in more detail in another video, but for the moment, it's all about the breath, so don't worry about it too much. Cool. So standing up nice and tall, the breath, first thing that happens with the breath is you get the impulse to breathe. It comes from the brain. Breath is one of the weird things in the body that you can control both consciously and unconsciously. And a lot of the problems we have come from our conscious brain trying to get in the way of the unconscious brain, which it knows what it's doing. So just let it do what it does. So the impulse comes from the brain. The mouth opens, or the nose, or the throat opens, the air comes in. The diaphragm, which sits just under your rib cage, just in here, it's like a trampoline, a big trampoline of muscle, and it basically, as you breathe in, it lowers like that to let the air in, and as you breathe out, it relaxes like that. So it's a big sheet of muscle that your stomach and your windpipe and everything, they go, not your windpipe's up here, your stomach and your intestines, they all go through the middle of it, and they use air pressure to allow the air into the lungs. And so as it contracts, it flattens, as it relaxes, it flattens like that, and then it contracts and the air goes out of your lungs. As well as that, you've got intercostal muscles which go in between your ribs. You can see my ribs, yeah. And they also help to expand your lungs by swinging out and then in. It's mostly a passive thing. They don't get too involved. They're only tiny little muscles, and they're sort of between the ribs. And they sort of do that as you breathe in and out. And below the diaphragm are all of these lovely abdominal muscles. You've got your rectus abdominis and your transversus abdominis and your obliques, your internal and external obliques, and your pelvic floor, your pelvic sling, and that goes like a sling underneath. And it's all of these muscles that we're really interested in. We're not super interested in exactly what the diaphragm is doing, although that comes in more controlled breathing and breath work and singing and things like that. And we're not super interested in what's happening with the intercostal muscles, but these ones are your powerhouse. They're big muscles, they're strong muscles, these are your core, and they are most useful when you're trying to breathe. And so to demonstrate what happens, I'm going to turn sideways so you can see. I'm going to do that. This is where I do a bit of adjustment. So basically, when you breathe in, assuming everything is nice and relaxed. So you might hear of clavicular breathing, your clavicles, your collarbones, which sit here. And that's like really shallow breathing when you're anxious, or you're just, it's like, sucking in oxygen. And that's not ideal. It's only filling up like a tiny bit of your lungs. And these muscles, again, they're not very big. There's not a lot of muscle mass up here, so they can't squeeze the lungs enough to get the air out with any kind of efficiency. So these ones what you want to use. So you want to drop the air all the way down to the bottom of your lungs. And obviously the bottom of your lungs is where the bottom of your rib cage is, but all of this stuff has to get out of the way to allow that to happen. And so what happens is when you breathe in, your throat opens, you breathe in, your stomach comes out like that. And then you breathe out, and it goes back in. And you want to keep all of this area nice and chill, nice and relaxed, so that you're not like gripping here. It's about the release of these muscles, so your abdominal wall will just relax and the air will just drop in. It's using physics, so the air pressure decreases, the diaphragm drops. All of these muscles get out of the way, allowing the diaphragm to drop, and then as these muscles engage, the diaphragm contracts up this way, squeezes the air back out of your lungs. And the exhalation is a much more active process than the inhalation. If you feel like you're sucking in air, you are tensing muscles that you don't need to, because basically you just need to release to allow those muscles to release out and allow more air in. Because if there's tension here, the diaphragm can't drop as much, and then you don't have as much capacity for contraction. If your muscles are already a little bit contracted, they can only contract so much more. But if they're completely released, they can contract a much further way, much like my arm is doing right now. These are muscles too, yeah. So in a very small nutshell, your breath starts with the impulse to breathe. The mouth and throat opens, or the nose and the throat opens. The diaphragm drops. The abdominal wall releases, and then you breathe out. The abdominal wall contracts, the diaphragm rises, and the air comes out. We'll do more work in another video on the floor. It will help with feeling that, because you're not standing up and using all of these muscles to keep you from falling over. But that's the basic process. And really, you don't want anything else to get involved. It really is a simple sort of action. And the most active part is the exhalation. The inhalation is super passive. And the quieter you can get the inhalation, the less tension there is in the neck and throat. Because obviously if there's tension there, if you can hear a sound, then something's getting in the way of the air coming in. And that's your fuel. And this is the fuel for the engine here. So this is your engine, the air is the fuel, and you want to be able to use that fuel as efficiently as you can by basically using these muscles as the piston to get the air out. So just watching once again. Oh, the sun's come out, that's delightful. Can I move the sun to make it? No, I can't really. I'm just gonna highlight my torso. No, that's not gonna work. So basically you breathe in. And notice my chest isn't collapsing. We're not squeezing everything out here. It's literally just this. Breathe in. There you go. That is the basic process of breathing. We'll go into it in more detail in later videos, but that's something to start with. So enjoy breathing, you guys. It's essential for life. Bye!